You think Shrek was made to parody fairy tales. That is the version most people carry. A green ogre replaces the prince. A princess refuses the usual script. The story mocks castles, dragons, and the idea of happily ever after, while still arriving there. It feels like rebellion. It feels like the genre turning on itself. But that impression depends on what you are not looking at, because Shrek does not dismantle the fairy tale. It reorganizes it. It reshapes its surface while preserving its deeper structure. The film creates the sensation of rupture without actually abandoning the system it appears to challenge. To understand this, you have to look beyond the jokes and reversals and into the conditions that produced it. Shrek emerges from a moment in animation history defined by competition, particularly between DreamWorks Animation and Walt Disney Animation Studios, and by a broader cultural shift toward irony, self-awareness, and narrative familiarity. It is a film shaped by pressure as much as by creativity. At the same time, it engages with deeper questions about identity. What happens when a person is defined by how others see them? What happens when performance becomes indistinguishable from self? What happens when a story tries to resist its own form but cannot fully escape it? The result is not simply parody, it is negotiation. And what Shrek negotiates is the boundary between breaking a tradition and continuing it. The starting point is William Steig and his 1990 book, Shrek. The book is brief and deliberately abrasive. Shrek is not misunderstood in a sympathetic sense. He is aggressively unpleasant. He frightens others and takes pleasure in doing so. The narrative does not attempt to soften him or make him relatable in the conventional way. Most importantly, the story does not hinge on transformation. Shrek does not become better. He does not grow into acceptance by changing himself. Instead, he finds a partner who mirrors his own grotesque qualities. The resolution is not integration into society, but alignment with difference. This is a crucial distinction. The book allows for a world where deviation does not need justification. It does not require the protagonist to be reinterpreted as secretly noble or emotionally accessible. It resists the idea that identity must be reshaped to fit narrative expectations. The film alters this significantly. In Shrek, the character is still an outsider, but he is also given emotional depth, vulnerability, and the capacity for change. The story introduces a romantic arc, a process of self-discovery, and a gradual movement toward connection. This shift reflects a broader pattern in adaptation. Source material is often reshaped to fit the demands of cinematic storytelling, which tends to favor clear arcs, emotional resolution, and identifiable growth. The film does not simply translate Steig's idea. It reorganizes it into a structure that audiences can follow and recognize. Resistance becomes narrative, and in doing so, something is lost. The original refusal to conform is replaced with a form of controlled difference, a version of otherness that can still be integrated into a familiar story. To fully understand this transformation, you have to consider the industrial context. DreamWorks Animation was not operating in isolation. It was positioned against Walt Disney Animation Studios, which had established a dominant model of animated storytelling throughout the late 20th century. Disney's approach was consistent and highly refined. Films combined musical elements with emotional clarity, structured narratives, and visually cohesive worlds. Characters were expressive, conflicts were legible, and resolutions were designed to feel complete. This model was not only artistic, but commercial. It set expectations for what animated films should look like and how they should function. DreamWorks needed to differentiate itself. Shrek became one of the clearest attempts to do so. The contrast is embedded in the film's design. Lord Farquaad's kingdom, Duloc, represents an extreme version of order. The environment is symmetrical, clean, and controlled. Every element appears regulated, as though nothing is allowed to exist outside predefined limits. This is not simply a visual choice. It reflects a critique of a particular kind of fantasy, one that prioritizes perfection and predictability over complexity. The swamp, by contrast, is irregular and dynamic. It is filled with textures, movement, and unpredictability. It resists neat organization. The opposition between these spaces is not subtle. It suggests that the traditional fairy tale world has become overly controlled, stripped of variation, and reduced to a set of predictable elements. Shrek positions itself as an alternative, but that alternative still operates within the same broader system. It challenges the surface of the fairy tale while maintaining its underlying framework. The tone of Shrek did not emerge fully formed. The production process was marked by uncertainty. Early versions of the film struggled to balance satire and sincerity. The narrative direction shifted multiple times. At a technical level, computer animation was still developing, creating additional challenges. Within DreamWorks Animation, the project was not initially seen as a flagship production. Some accounts suggest that it was treated as secondary, a place where experimentation occurred but where success was not guaranteed. This instability shaped the film. Rather than following a single clear vision, Shrek evolved through iteration. Elements that felt too conventional were removed or altered. Attempts at straightforward, emotional storytelling were often undercut with humor. The result is a tone that feels deliberately uneven, moving between sincerity and irony. A key moment in this process involved Mike Myers. Originally, the character was performed with a neutral accent. Myers later chose to re-record the entire role using a Scottish accent, significantly altering the character's identity. This change had a substantial impact. The accent introduced a different rhythm and tone. It made Shrek feel more specific, less generic. It reinforced his position as an outsider, not only within the story, but within the genre itself. He does not sound like a traditional fairy tale hero. He sounds like something else. And that difference contributes to the film's overall effect. The irony, the humor, the sense of distance from tradition, these elements are not simply conceptual choices. They are the result of a production process that required constant adjustment. The film's identity is shaped as much by what it rejected as by what it created. At first glance, Shrek appears to dismantle the fairy tale. The hero is an ogre. The princess resists expectation. The story openly mocks its own conventions. But the deeper you look, the more familiar the structure becomes. There is still a quest. Shrek must retrieve Fiona. There is still a journey. Obstacles are encountered and overcome. There is still a transformation. Characters change, emotionally, if not physically. There is still a resolution. The story ends with romantic union and stability. The framework remains intact. What changes is the framing. The film signals awareness of its own structure. It invites the audience to recognize the tropes while simultaneously participating in them. This is what narrative theory describes as metafiction, storytelling that draws attention to its own construction. The effect is subtle. The audience feels as though they are outside the story, observing it critically, but they are still guided through the same emotional arc. This creates a dual experience, engagement and distance at the same time. The film does not break the fairy tale. It teaches the audience to see it while still believing in it. Shrek is not simply an unconventional hero. He is a psychological pattern. From the beginning, his behavior reflects expectation. He anticipates fear and rejection, and he performs that role accordingly. His aggression is not random, it is defensive. It is a response to how he believes he will be treated. This dynamic aligns with the concept of the self-fulfilling prophecy. When individuals expect negative outcomes, their behavior can contribute to those outcomes occurring, reinforcing the original expectation. Shrek's identity is shaped through this loop. Rejection leads to defensive behavior. Defensive behavior leads to further rejection. Over time, this becomes stable. He is not just treated as a monster, he becomes one in behavior because that role provides predictability. The famous metaphor that ogres are like onions suggests layers. It implies depth and hidden complexity. But the film simplifies what those layers represent. Shrek's emotional transformation occurs within a compressed narrative arc. His defenses begin to collapse through interaction with Donkey and Fiona. Moments of vulnerability lead quickly to change. In psychological terms, this is highly condensed. Identity shaped by long-term social exclusion does not unravel easily. It involves deeply ingrained patterns of thought and behavior. Change is often gradual and uneven. The film presents a version of this process that is structured and efficient. It offers clarity where real experience is often unstable. Princess Fiona complicates the narrative further. She begins within the recognizable framework of a fairy tale princess. She expects rescue. She follows certain conventions, but she quickly disrupts that role, demonstrating independence, skill, and resistance to expectation. The central twist, that she remains an ogre permanently, appears to challenge traditional standards of beauty. In many fairy tales, transformation moves toward idealization. Characters become more aligned with cultural expectations of attractiveness and refinement. Here, the direction is reversed. Fiona's final form is less aligned with those expectations, but the structure remains. There is still a transformation. There is still a revelation of a true self. There is still a final state that resolves identity. The film replaces one ideal with another. Instead of becoming more socially acceptable, Fiona becomes more aligned with Shrek. This shift is meaningful, but it does not eliminate the underlying framework. It retains the idea that identity must resolve into a stable, recognizable form. The difference is in the direction of that resolution, not in its existence. One of the defining characteristics of Shrek is its tone. The film uses humor constantly. It references other stories. It includes elements that disrupt the illusion of a self-contained world. It relies heavily on irony. This reflects a broader cultural shift. By the late 20th century, audiences had become increasingly familiar with narrative conventions. Stories that acknowledged their own structure became more common. Irony became a dominant mode of engagement. Shrek operates within this context. It does not present itself as a pure fairy tale. It presents itself as a commentary on fairy tales. But humor also serves another function. It regulates emotional intensity. By undercutting sincerity, the film prevents moments from becoming too heavy. Emotional scenes are often followed by jokes or interruptions. This creates distance. The audience is allowed to feel, but not too deeply. This balance makes the film accessible. It engages with themes like rejection, identity, and belonging, but it does so in a way that remains controlled. The irony acts as a buffer. The release of Shrek in 2001 places it within a significant moment in animation. Computer-generated imagery was becoming more advanced. Studios were exploring how this technology could be used not just for novelty, but for storytelling. Pixar had already demonstrated the potential of CGI with earlier films, but DreamWorks sought to differentiate its visual approach. The design of Shrek emphasizes contrast. The swamp is detailed, textured, and irregular. It feels organic, as though it exists outside control. Duloc is smooth, symmetrical, and precise. It feels constructed, almost mechanical. This visual opposition reinforces the film's thematic tension. The environments are not neutral. They reflect different ways of organizing the world, the organic versus the controlled, the unpredictable versus the regulated. Technology is not just a tool here, it is part of the film's meaning. The success of Shrek had a significant impact on animation. It demonstrated that audiences would respond to films that combined humor, self-awareness, and subversion of traditional tropes. It proved that sincerity was no longer the only viable tone. This influence can be seen in many subsequent animated films. Reference-based humor became more common. Narratives became more self-aware. Traditional structures were increasingly questioned. What began as a challenge to convention became a new convention. The techniques that distinguished Shrek were adopted and repeated. Irony became standard. Subversion became expected. This is a common pattern in cultural production. Innovation is absorbed into the system it once challenged. The reason Shrek feels different is not that it abandons the fairy tale. It rearranges it. It introduces irony and self-awareness. It challenges certain expectations while preserving others. It allows the audience to feel as though they are seeing through the structure, while still guiding them through it. This is the central tension of the film. It offers the experience of breaking the system, while quietly maintaining it. It replaces polish with roughness, certainty with humor, idealization with imperfection. But it does not remove the underlying framework of narrative, identity, and resolution. At its core, Shrek is not a rejection of the fairy tale. It is an adaptation of it to a new cultural moment. A moment where audiences are aware of stories, aware of structure, aware of cliché, and yet still drawn to them. The film captures that condition. It lets the audience laugh at the fairy tale, and then leads them back into it, not unchanged, but still intact. That is why it works, and that is why it endures.